Good morning, everybody. My name is Camelia Jahanshahi, and I am the Dismantling Barriers lead for the CUC. I'm here to offer you a land acknowledgement to start us off this morning. So I'm going to invite you to get comfortable and take a nice deep breath as you listen. We are all residing on what are traditionally indigenous lands. One small effort we as non-Indigenous people make in our spaces is to open up with a land acknowledgement. This is a practice we take part in because it calls for us all to think about where we are physically, what the history of that land is, but also to honor the relationships we have with our Indigenous neighbors. By examining our inherited history and understanding its current state, we practice saying the names of the land and the peoples whose land we are occupying in an attempt to become better accomplices to our Indigenous siblings in the struggle of the land back movement and to uplift the need for Indigenous sovereignty. I am speaking to you right now from Montreal, on the lands of the Anishinaabe and the Kanien'kehá:ka people, members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy in a city called Tiohtià:ke, or Munyan. If you know the names of the land you're on, I encourage you to write them in the chat. If not, I encourage you to look it up on native-land.ca. We do this work because it helps us to honor and support the work of Indigenous peoples. The Americas we know are built on violence and erasure, and we bring these histories with us. Those native to this land, Indigenous people from other territories, as well as white settlers by conquest, and those of us who have come here by force or otherwise as a result of enslavement, colonialism, imperialism, and ongoing wars. When we enter any room, we must bring these histories into view. And when I talk about the land back movement and Indigenous solidarity, I am speaking locally, but I am also speaking globally. None of us are free so long as some of us are left behind. With this knowledge, we enter, we meet, and we uplift in the hopes of making a different world. May this land acknowledgement encourage us to think collectively in this work. With this, I close out this acknowledgement in an understanding that while it is important to do so, it is not the end-all, be-all of this work. And I thank you for your patience, your time, your presence, and your openness of spirit. Thank you.
Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise Wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
I have a theory that we come together, we build a thing, this good thing that is Unitarian Universalism, for example, and we build it out of necessity because we need a place to go where we fit, we belong, and where we get our needs met, and where we can feel a meaningful connection with other people of similar values and do good in the world. So we create this thing because we need it and we couldn't find it anywhere else. And then we tend to it and we care for it and we polish it and we love it and we are invested in it because we should be. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves if we are still making art or if we are creating an artifact. Sometimes we polish it in a way that keeps it exactly the same. We might even put it in that case with the glass and lock it and say, this is the beautiful thing. I get how we get there. I love congregational life. And I'm sure I've said, no, there's a better way to do this. We have to do it this way. We've always done it this way. Sure, I've said that at some point. I apologize to the universe. So if we keep it exactly the same, frozen in time, it's still beautiful. We can still love it and appreciate it. And there will be people for whom that is perfect. That is exactly what they need. But if it is not renewing itself, we have to notice that it's not working in this moment, in this culture, in this demographic. What is the need in this moment? We came together because we needed a place where we didn't have to have a creed. We could still be meaningful people with connection, do good in the world without being told what we had to believe. It was a brave move. What's the brave move now?
At the best, people are going, okay, so what are new ways to engage? Because the reality is people still have a need for a spiritual life, whether or not they define it that way or not. We all have a personal theology, the way that we understand that the world works and the values behind our relationships. And so congregations that are willing to be creative about that, I think, have a bit of a head start on what this next possibility is going to look like.
What are the real needs you're meeting? Now, this is for real people who are hungry for something. They're really hungry for genuine community. They're hungry for creative expression. They're hungry to remember what really is important to them. And then to say, what I offer feeds that. If you can't generate the goosebumps, if you can't generate the emotional energy for that, then maybe your ladder is up the wrong building. Or maybe it's not a ladder you need. Maybe it's something completely different.
Every time I hear someone saying, oh, but we need diverse things and we need something that will meet the future, and as things are changing and we need to create those things, I think, but they're all over the place. You're just not recognizing. It feels like someone is looking at a field of wildflowers and saying, how come nothing will grow here? And you're like, well, nothing that you're thinking about as a flower is growing here, but you're thinking these are weeds. These are not weeds. These are flowers.
That willingness to show up and actually really hear each other's voices. Everybody coming to the table to have a conversation is critical and central to the possibility of that co-creation.
We're not going to fix Unitarian Universalism in Canada with one solution. It's going to be multiple different solutions in multiple different places in order to figure out how we are going to continue to be people of faith going forward. And I think that a big part of our faith, going back to that living it in your bone kind of situation that we were talking about earlier, this is a thing that I am versus this is a thing that I'm moving away from, is the practice. It is a practice to be Unitarian Universalist. You have to practice these principles. You have to engage and participate in the discovery of what your community is going to look like.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come, 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 whoever whoever you believe in, causes no care. Worship whoever is believing, 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 causes no care. Yet again of despair, come, yet again come.
In 2024, the Canadian Unitarian Council, all of us, together, set a clear and courageous intention through our strategic goal and priorities to build a dynamic and sustainable Unitarian Universalism in Canada, one that serves not only our own communities, but the wider world. This call, grounded in our 8 principles, invites us to deepen our connections, dismantle barriers, and reimagine how we thrive together. Our strategic priorities: listening for where the energy is, strengthening collaboration, transforming systems, expanding resources, and equipping communities to serve, are not just administrative goals. They're spiritual ones. But what does that actually mean? How do we materialize this grand aspiration? Well, one thing we can do is look to UU leaders of the past. They offer lived experience, hard-won insights, and cautionary tales that can guide our path forward. Looking back is not about preserving the status quo. It's about listening to those who dared to disrupt it and learning how their instincts and insights can inform a more sustainable and transformative future. One such leader whose voice still resonates today is Reverend Ray Drennan. He was kind enough to mail me a copy of his Confluence Lecture that he did in Edmonton in 2004. It turns out he's been thinking deeply on this topic for a very long time. With his permission, I thought I'd share some highlights with you. Here's a clip from his opening.
I did a very unministerial thing. I went to listen. I asked a lot of people what makes Canada, Canada, and what makes Unitarianism north of the 45th of the 49th parallel Canadian, much like the CUC Principles and Sources Task Force is now doing. Some people answered very personally, while others, claiming to speak for all, actually spoke for their particular spiritual, social, political subgroup, which they believed to define the center. Whether humanists, cosmologists, NDPer, environmentalists, pagan, or Christian, each tried with varying degrees of eloquence to define the challenged center. Neil Basundat said something like that about Canada itself. It was, however, Gilbert Bouchard, right here in Edmonton, who won the prize in my books. He answered, Canadian Unitarianism is an idea of a possibility. Thanks, Gilbert. Your answer resonated with me and has stimulated more than a little reflection.
From there, Reverend Drennan presented us with paths forward if we were to truly become an organization that belongs to the future. On the first path, Unitarianism would stop pretending to be a catch-all for liberal values and instead fully embrace its reality as what he refers to as a value tribe, a group of people bound by shared ideologies, social stances, and cultural traits. Drennan suggests that rather than feeling guilty about being exclusive, UU communities could intentionally deepen their ideological commitments, becoming more countercultural and radical, even revolutionary. Here's Ray.
Let me be bold for a moment. I would suggest that if we wish to remain a culturally value-specific tribal religion, then we will need to move to an even less inclusive position. Yes, you heard me correctly. To a less inclusive position. We would need to become a more exclusive and more dissonant or radical value tribe. We would need to sharpen our social and political positions, moving from mildly liberal to counterculture or radical.
To some, I know hearing this feels pretty good. The more radical, the better. But in the end, Drennan warns against becoming an exclusive value tribe because it ultimately limits growth, diversity, and sustainability. Why? Well, among other things, he acknowledges that all religions are inherently tribal to some extent. And he argues that when congregations rigidly define themselves by specific ideological or political stances, they exclude those who might otherwise find spiritual belonging. This kind of unintentional exclusion, he says, shuts down authentic dialogue, reinforces sameness, and prevents genuine diversity. For Drennan, the danger is that such exclusivity creates a closed system that mirrors the dominant culture, rather than challenging it or transforming it. If Unitarianism is to thrive, he believes it must move away from being a mere lobby group for liberal values and become an open space for deep spiritual engagement across real difference.
Personally, I do not believe the center of our movement or our congregations formed around consensus on substantive issues is achievable, important, or productive. It may even be a betrayal of the revolutionary idea that we are. Let me unpack that sentence. In order to embrace fully the possibilities inherent within this path beyond religion, we would need to leave behind once and for all the idea that we are a church, even a liberal, avant-garde, postmodern church. We would need to work on our feelings about this, and there seem to be many. We would need to honestly admit that we are no longer a religion. The good news is that there are few people out there looking for a religion. We would need to admit that we no longer have a faith. We would have to stop using such language. Boldly, we would empty the center of any hope of consensus or of the pet orthodoxies that seem to sneak in. No constellation of opinions, no social programs, no matter how noble, not even being green or anti-war or anti-globalization, no beliefs, opinions, political positions, ideologies, or theologies should sneak into the center of our movement. Even diversity itself would not be the center. I would say that only when the center is truly empty can the full possibilities of deep spirituality enter among us. Let me repeat that. Only when the center is truly empty can the full possibilities of deep spirituality enter among us. The Tao Te Ching speaks of this. It says, "It is empty, yet infinitely capable. It is like the eternal void filled with infinite possibilities." The center of our movement could become that empty fullness filled with infinite possibilities. Beliefs and opinions and social justice positions have no place defining our collective center or identity. Content is not the issue. Process is. How we hold our opinions and beliefs and exchange them with others is the issue. Within our congregations, gathering in this empty, full space of respectful engagement, the military person and the pacifist, the gay marriage supporter and non-supporter, the universal and private sector Medicare people, the humanist and the Christian, would feel that their perspectives were equally heard and equally valid. Each would be honored as they were. Each would be challenged to become all that they might be. Each would find a place of deep dialogue and exchange, and no shoulds as to how to interpret both collectively or practically would enter. There might be no principles at all, but simply rules of engagement or covenants of behavior. Imagine what might happen if we left to one side our collective tribal generic Protestant identity, left to one side our collective political, social, theological, and ideological positions, so as to engage with each other in an open space of empty fullness.
Drennan calls us to empty the center, to resist defining ourselves by ideology or sameness, and instead create a space where real difference can enter, where deep spirituality can emerge, where conflict and amicable collision are used to transform us. It's lofty, yes, and idealistic too, but it's not impossible. There are those of us who feel we do a pretty good job at this already, and those who feel we're not yet equipped with the tools and skills necessary to hold space for such differences. And these are just two ideas from one minister 20 years ago. What's so inspiring about the lecture, and you really should listen to the whole thing, is the idea that we're not bound to a UUism of the past. We are called to reimagine a UUism of the future and live into it one day at a time. And here we are, 20 years later.
These old stories, give 'em to the river, watch 'em float downstream. Back to the sea, these old stories, give 'em to the river, they got no more power over me. These old stories, give 'em to the fire, watch 'em up in smoke, away they float. These old stories, give 'em to the fire, they got no more power over me. These old stories that been running a show, the record player voices that seem to think they know what's real, what's possible, what I should be. These old stories got no power over me. These old stories, give 'em to the wind, watch 'em dissipate as they float away. These old stories, give 'em to the wind, they got no more power over me. These old stories, give 'em to the soil, watch 'em break on down, return to the ground. These old stories, give 'em to the soil, they got no more power over me. These old stories that been running the show, the record player voices that seem to think they know what's real, what's possible, what I should be. These old stories got no power over me. These old stories, give 'em to the past. That's where they were born. Now they're outworn. These old stories, give 'em to the past. They got no more power over me. These old stories that been running the show, the record player voices that seem to think they know what's real, what's possible, what I should be. These old stories got no power over me. These old stories got no power over me. These old stories got no power over me.
Our opening words today came from a variety of guests in the UU Expressions Love in Real Life podcast, a 10-episode docuseries produced by the Canadian Unitarian Council's Justice and Equity team, hosted by me, Amber Belmar, and Aaron Horvath, The series explores how Unitarian Universalism is practiced across Canada in 2024, lifting up a rich diversity of voices and expressions from 27 interviewees across 17 communities. Rooted in deep research and lived experience, the podcast uncovers vibrant, innovative expressions of UUism emerging from within and beyond traditional congregational narratives, ranging from alternative worship models, community ministries, and social justice groups, to an online singing circle, social enterprises, and young adult networks. Each episode invites listeners into honest dialogue about the realities facing UU communities today: declining membership, generational divides, sustainability, relevance in their wider communities, and the need for transformation. Today, we reflect on what it means to move from possibility to practice with just 3 of the many inspiring stories from the UU Expressions podcast and ask ourselves, what makes a community sustainable? How do we become not just keepers of the past, but co-creators of a Unitarian Universalism that belongs boldly to the living future? These stories are not meant to be a solution, but are offered as experiments, as dreams, and aha moments. There will be music and quiet moments for personal reflection and a chance to welcome in what moves you. A heads up, the videos are choppy. They were edited to serve the purposes of a podcast, and they're slices of a bigger story. To understand the full context and meaning of them, I strongly encourage you to listen to the series and engage with the discussion questions provided. You won't regret it. And one last thing, each interview you are about to hear is conducted by the CUC's former Justice and Equity lead, Erin Horvath. Erin began her work with us as a 6-month contract and ended up blessing us with over 6 years of her gifted leadership. Her insights, creativity, and generous spirit have been integral to our journey toward full inclusion, sustainability, uncolonizing, and so much more. Erin will be missed, and we're deeply thankful for her contribution to our community. Let's get started.
For a while, we were meeting at a conservation authority's office, and it was really a wonderful space that we had. We had permission to go into the building, and we would meet in their boardroom, which had lovely windows outside. And there was one time when an owl actually came to the window. There were times when we had meetings outdoors at the Conservation Authority in a gazebo. We talked about nature and about birds, and we included that into the service. Recently, we've been meeting at this art gallery. It's a small gallery, and the owner of the gallery has a room that's kind of apart from the gallery where we can shut the doors, and that's where we've been meeting. And sometimes we go into the gallery, and we have at times used the work that's in the gallery as part of our meditation or to include as part of the discussion. There was one time when the theme we chose was about the environment, and it just so happened that there was a landscape show on. During the service, we went out and we looked at the paintings, and we invited people to choose a particular painting to meditate on and then to come back and discuss. So that's some of the things that we do that's different. A couple of times where we decided to have a water service, and we met at a heritage museum that was alongside of a river. We had absolutely beautiful services there that were in nature and with nature, and we invited someone from the Indigenous community to come and speak and to sing and to offer some of their teachings to us.
So it sounds like then part of it at this point is to have your locations be like an active part of your gathering.
I think it's just turned out that way. I don't know whether that kind of intention or that kind of accident is for all of the participants, or whether it's just for myself or for a few of us where we're just very aware of the location that we're in and wanting to use it to somehow enhance whatever theme work that we're working on for the service. We're always sort of moving and adjusting depending on how many people are coming to the meetings. I'm quite happy to be nomadic. I think the idea of having a permanent base does not suit us at all. There's so few of us, and because we're so widespread. So in a way, The fact that we're nomadic means that we can move to the different areas. We could set up a meeting that's maybe closer to Huntsville because that's where we've got people coming from, or we've got more people coming from Aurelia, so we can move to Aurelia maybe once or twice or something to have meetings there so that those people don't have to travel. It takes a lot of pressure off if we don't have our own space that we have to deal with. We don't have the money for it. We're finding it difficult enough with just the few of us to keep the fellowship going, in terms of administration. We have a board, and that's enough for us. I really like the opportunity to be in these different spaces. They kind of allow for opportunities for different things to come up, and sometimes to connect with different kinds of communities. Whenever we're at these different places, we're making donations to them to pay for the space. It always helps the community where we're gathering for our own services.
So this is kind of an interesting alternative with vision and passion put into, you're not just choosing any old space. It sounds like you've had the art gallery and the conservation authorities and other religious community or whatever, right? These are interesting things to me. You're creating events, and the events have an overlap interest, and then you engage whoever wants to be engaged. Another option would be other nomadic UU expressions.
Right.
Like that expression becomes a thing, right? And so then now these groups that are also nomadic UUs create some sort of a board or whatever it is, right? To make life easier. And so then it doesn't matter. You can be from all across the country, but then you have these connections. This is where, trying to do an inventory of what's already happening to know how many other groups are there like yours. And maybe there's some people that are meeting in not congregational buildings, like not church buildings, but haven't really thought about it as being a ministry or as being an expression or whatever terms that they put, but to be in a community engaged nomadic expression. The community developer in me, I see like only possibilities when I look at something like that, because I highly value community connections and the benefits that happen when you spend your time really understanding someone else's world, and that you could end up being a group of people who end up knowing a lot about the local community and have like these really deep meaningful connections. And maybe the collective expression looks more like once a year inviting all of these people that you've made connections with to come and have a shared potluck meal in your whatever shared space. You have 50 people or more people, right? These are all the different groups that you've chosen to intentionally connect with over the years. And then you facilitate a social gathering where the congregational folks are meeting up with the Heritage Museum people, who are meeting up with the women's group collective that started their crafts thing on Front Street, or all the different things that you become connected with.
We're always hoping to reach more people. We do have some new members. One member that actually came from another congregation from across Canada, they've moved. So it's not like we're bringing in some new people to UU. We always believe that there are people out there that are in their hearts UUs, and hoping that we can connect with them and bring them in to join us.
One thing that I would say coming out of this conversation with the nomadic UU expression, a possibility is not necessarily trying to bring in more UUs as much as it is that idea of your group connecting with these various aspects of the community intentionally. And depending on how you do it, you might stay 3 months in one spot, but then deeply engage with the people in that organization or whatever, right? And then, like I said, if you bring people together, then it's almost like when they're connecting with you, they're connecting with this vision of the communities being interwoven. This idea that we all are interconnected, one of the UU values, it's a way of bringing that value to life. So you're not just bringing like-minded people, same people together to be UUs in this one way, as much as it is saying we are interconnected. Let's find our interconnection together. So this idea of let's find our interconnections, like
Yes.
if that became your practice of how you brought your UU values to life, was to say, it doesn't matter if this is like, we're going to meet with the war veterans type thing, people with PTSD, we're going to meet in this reserve, we're going to meet in this conservation area, we're going to meet with these women who are domestic violence survivors and are using such and such a thing to whatever, right? Those are your 4 groups for the year. And then you become the center spoke.
Yes.
And then you're connecting and actually creating what's called social capital for those different groups.
Right.
So you might choose on purpose, like an intersection of folks that when you end up connecting them and that you bring them into your world, now their world's richer because a group that maybe has very little is connected with a group that has maybe more. Or, a group that has something to express is connected with a group of artists to express it. To me, it's like That could be, if fleshed out a little bit more, something that becomes a nomadic UU expression. This is what it looks like. And if you join in this for the year, you will be having this experience of being connected with 4 different parts of our area and learning and being and whatever. Like, I would sign up for that. Shoot, that sounds fantastic.
I'm actually really excited about it. Thinking about our nomadic approach, I don't think we ever quite looked at spaces that we go to intentionally.
And I do think that when you talk about community outreach, that's an example of where you could have for a time or forever, whatever it is, people coming on board because they too have helped shape who these 4 will be and they're invested in it. And so it could be a totally not currently a UU person. That would become irrelevant. You might have 15 additional people come on board to have the experience of learning and talking about it. And then when you're meeting, you're not just necessarily meeting in someone's space, but you're hearing from them and you're building relationships. And then say you're meeting on a reserve, right? And you start to build connections, relationships intentionally. Then if you do it so it's not too far away, then you might also invite those people to come and be with you when you meet with the next group. And then you start to create this collection of people as opposed to only seeing yourselves to go connect with them.
This idea of the regional hubs, that's really cool. And that could be really helpful.
The idea of soulful singing was a singing meditation where we would sing short songs that could be taught by ear. There was no music in front of us. There was no words in front of us. The leader would teach a song line by line like this. It's good to have a song or two when the roads get bumpy. It's good to have a song or two when the roads get bumpy. Good to have a song or two, oh, on this journey. It's good to have a song or two on this journey. Now that's a zipper song, so you can add in different. It's good to have a friend or two. It's good to have a dream or two. It's good to have a snack or two. It could be any kind of thing there. And then we would sing that again and again and again in a repetitive way. And as we sang that song or any song, and as it came around again and again, maybe we'd have some harmonies spontaneously, nothing written down. Maybe we would feel the song a little deeper in our body. If it was a zipper song like that one, maybe folks would call out words that they wanted to include. So it was a way of including people's diverse experiences. And then there would be a silent and quiet time, and then another song would arise. I did this from 2002 until 2020.
And then the pandemic hit.
There is no way I would have ever done soulful singing on Zoom without the pandemic. I know for sure I would never have done it. 3 weeks before, somebody who was planning to come to an in-person gathering, she emailed saying, oh, the roads are kind of slippery, and she lives like a half an hour away from Kingston. Do you think I could just like FaceTime into soulful singing or maybe Zoom into soulful singing? In my head, I said, there's no damn way I am ever doing that. But I didn't reply that way. Of course, I replied in a very, well, thank you for your request for that. Like I wouldn't be able to do that because of technology things, but thanks for letting us know and, safe home, it's good to stay home tonight. Yeah, that makes sense. I basically totally, in my heart of hearts, said, there is no way in hell I am ever gonna use Zoom to FaceTime to do singing. Like that, the whole thing about singing is that we get to hear the harmonies that we're all making together, that we're in the room together. I was a true believer about that way of singing, and I still am. Singing in a room together, which I still do, is a beautiful thing. And I have discovered, because I was pushed into it, because I needed to do something to respond to what was happening as in a pastoral way. I started soulful singing on Zoom as a pastor. People are scared. People need something, and I could do this. Not because I thought that soulful singing online was going to work, but not that I thought I had a dream about at some point, oh yeah, I'll get my songs shared on TikTok. And so I thought to myself, so many people are at home. Maybe I'll start a group that will meet every morning at 9 o'clock. We'll have a morning group at 9 o'clock. We'll sing for 45 minutes, and then we'll have like a half an hour of listening, just a time for people to share afterwards. And I'll do that for the next couple of weeks until things blow over. That group is still meeting every single day.
At the time of our interview, she estimated that the group had met every single day, totaling around 1,400 times.
And the reason they keep coming is because there's power in song. There's power in the process of singing, and there's power in these small songs. I've written so many songs. I've written hundreds and hundreds of songs, but the songs that I write really illuminate and lift up Unitarian Universalist values. And even if you are not connected to a Unitarian Universalist congregation, it is a way of sharing those in such pithy ways. And people remember them. People remember a song like, "We're all connected, bird, cloud, and tree. We're all connected, earth, wind, and sea. An interwoven, exquisite tapestry. We're all connected, breath, you and me." And because it marries this embodied practice with really theological tenets, because that's what the words of these songs are, theological propositions, even though there are people there that are completely secular that would never imagine it as being a theological statement. I think of it that way in some ways, that this is a belief, a value, a way of thinking that I think promotes the kind of healing, inclusivity, diversity, care, collective care that I want to see prospering in the world, in a world that's really difficult.
Soulful Singing has evolved to include a book club, a creating group, special monthly events, in person, and an online picnic. It's a genuine, caring community. I'm just thinking about this group that I'm going to interview later on this week sometime, and they're young adults that are interested in social justice. Is there any way for them to be connected to CUSJ without, like, they're going to have a totally different way? Like, if they used Robert's rules, I would be astonished, for example.
We don't use Robert's rules.
Oh, we do.
We don't officially.
Well, no, we have motions and seconds and all that.
Yeah, any of that stuff. I can't imagine that would be their cultural way of meeting. Is there a way where there's a merger here, where there's almost like a handoff of CUSJ to say, here's the entity, it's a legal entity, you don't have to form yourself now, but you might change your bylaws and you might do...
We'd love to do that.
Yeah, we would love to hand it off. And what did I say? That we can learn from each other, because we are never too old to learn. We are learning all the time. And to learn a different way of doing it, who knows? Maybe this other way of doing it is better than the very rigid way of motions. For legality, it is possibly necessary. I don't know if it is.
Well, you have to have a treasurer. You have to have somebody who's going to be making the agenda.
Yeah,
you have to have somebody to do the secretarial work, keep track of what's going on.
The legal requirements for a not-for-profit is probably quite rigid, but maybe I'm totally wrong. And that would be good to find out from them how they are doing it and how they are legally involved in these things and go from there. But we are here. The wheel does not have to be reinvented all the time. So, I mean, it is a shame. But on the other hand, that's life. Maybe we are outdated. We are the dinosaurs, and the new group, the mammals, come and we are very successful, right? Something like that. The problem is the structure sometimes gets in the way. The problem is also we have done it always this way, so we will continue to do it this way. And that is a very dangerous precedent.
Well, yes. And then in the case of these young adults that are organizing, right? This is like a very personal, this is their friend that they're organizing around, that story, that influence. And so when we talk about them wanting to make an influence, they have probably little to no money to do anything to do with that. Like, so they're starting from the beginning, but they have a deeply personal thing. They may not take on all of the issues in all of the country, in all of the world, but they're starting with something that matters a great deal to them. And so as I'm talking to you, I don't have any outcome required of this. It's just, I'm curious. I'm like, well, is there anything that can happen in this regard to fertilize this next generation of young people? Because they're not going to spend all their time figuring out all the logistics. The younger people are about relationship, typically, not all exclusively, but they're highly motivated to do things relationally. And then, of course, they use totally different streams with the social media and all these various other channels to enact change. But many of them have said that they have a reverence for the activists that have come before them, and they don't want to cut that off. And they see that as like their elders that could be mentoring and teaching. But right now, there's a disconnect.
I brought up ideas to the chairman of the board at First Unitarian Church in Toronto, and he accepted anything I wanted to do. He said, go ahead and do it. All you can have, you go ahead. Just do it. And I was so inspired by that. I said, well, what the heck? We organized things, got ourselves in trouble in a little bit, but we did it. We had the support of the congregation, even if it was just the board.
The problem is elders sounds like we will have the wisdom. Well, we don't.
We don't have.
We are still young ones inside of old bodies exploring what can be done and never know exactly how to do things. It's still here and there completely new to us. There's some same old things, of course, but we don't want to go that route all the time because it's kind of boring. To have some renewal and so forth would be very healthy, and we certainly would be looking forward to such a thing.
It was so inspiring for me to have an adult tell me, go ahead, try it, do it. Here's some money, do it. And in most of my life, you go to adults and ask them for help or something. They have nothing but roadblocks to say, oh, you can't do that because of this. You can't do that because of this. There's this problems. We always did it. Yeah. Whereas the Unitarians, that was my inspiration. I said, oh, wow, we can actually have an overnight thing with the kids from all around the United States, that St. Lawrence district and Hamilton, and we could stay overnight in the church, and all I had to do was be there. It was fantastic.
So herein lies the challenge for this generation of UUs that are older, is to figure out, well, what does it mean to be that inspiring person that says to the younger generation, here you go, you don't have to do it our way. Like, meaning if you have another way of making decisions, then do that. If you have another way of gathering, do it.
Absolutely.
But that's the challenge that we have. What do we need to become to fertilize this next generation coming up?
In a house which becomes a home, one hands down and another takes up the heritage of mind and heart, laughter and tears, musings and deeds. Love, like a carefully loaded ship, crosses the gulf between the generations. The poem, Generation to Generation by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, reminds us, if we need the reminder, of the many ways we are connected to one another, of interdependence. Love, like a carefully loaded ship, crosses the gulf between the generations. Let us pause now and remember that lives are lived in the spaces amongst and between us. The elders among us, those who consider themselves new, those who are young, and longtime UUs, we all have hopes, dreams, heartaches, and joys. So let us honor the lives we live now in this moment. Let us breathe in and out, and in and out. And let us now, in this moment, remember love, so that we are able to navigate our differences and our similarities with love, always with love.
Today's offering will go to the Justice and Equity Fund, which supports the CUC's ongoing work of justice and equity, which includes the work of uplifting the eighth principle, dismantling racism, and deepening our collective commitment to justice, equity, and inclusion. As Unitarian Universalists, we have a long and proud history of supporting social justice issues that uplift and protect our most vulnerable populations. LGBTQ+ rights, refugee justice, environmental action, accessibility justice, and much more. And now, more than ever, we must organize, reinvigorate ourselves, and act with courage, compassion, creativity, and care. With resolutions going back to 1963, we know that the struggle is long, but full of love, passion, and dedication. Across the country, Unitarian Universalists have been working to build more inclusive, welcoming communities that prioritize the well-being of our most vulnerable. The CUC Social Justice Team helps guide these efforts, identifying key issues, subordinating coordinated action, and connecting congregations and individuals in collective work for love and justice. To donate, please use the QR code or visit cuc.ca/Justice and Equity Fund. No gift is too small, and together we can have a grand impact. Thank you so much.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well.
Emptying the center isn't just about letting go of a central ideology. It's about releasing a central form. The traditional congregational model answered a need for many when those congregations were formed. Today, wise congregations are considering the full breadth of Unitarian Universalist life in Canada and taking into account absent generations and the broader cultural decline in organized religion. Our movement wants to thrive in these changing times, and we recognize that religion is changing shape. Across the country, within and beyond congregational walls, new expressions are emerging, raw, relational, experimental, and deeply grounded in our shared values. If we can broaden our interest and attention toward resourcing this living, growing ecosystem, we open the possibility of not only surviving, but thriving together. With a blend of courage and creativity, we can be a faith that truly bridges difference, both in theory and in practice. When we release our values into the world, we can become a center of dialogue, a creative hub, a safe haven, a transformational space, a purposeful collective, a learning community. It goes on. If we're willing to imagine ourselves more expansively, embracing the many and varied ways that Unitarian Universalism is emerging, anything is possible. Our closing words come from Ray's benediction, followed by music and an invitation to coffee hour.
In this idea rests vast possibilities. But how might we get there? How might we move beyond where we are and start out on the path? We could wait. We could wait until we are pushed once again, though there's no telling what shape our movement and our world might be in by then. There doesn't seem to be an easy way into it. It most probably would require us simply to jump into it. Nearly every advance of the human species has been that leap in the dark. Whether it was that first creature which crawled out to land, or the first person who tried to fly, it begins by imagining it. May we together in this movement learn how to imagine boldly, and then to leap, and then to fly. May we imagine ourselves into the future. May we imagine ourselves anew in order to bring to birth in this land more of the possibilities inherent within the dynamic idea of Canadian Unitarianism. Our survival as a country and as a species, and maybe the survival of our tiny, fragile, and interrelated planet may depend on humanity imagining the possibilities inherent in this bold idea. Marnie Harmony said it this way, and I will truly end here. I say that we shall never leave the harbor if we do not hoist the sail. I say that we have got to walk the waves as well as the solid ground. I say anyone who goes without consciousness of this will remain chained to a rusty anchor. May the journey find us worthy.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when a hunger and a passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice filled by our courageous choice. When the